you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today I'm going to be giving you the update to the burn build, the Magicka Dragonknight for the Elsweyr Chapter. Now this doesn't require any trial loot whatsoever. However, if you want to optimize it and go a little bit higher, you can do, and I'm going to explain that in the gear. But this is focused on high single target with decent AoE, and if you follow the rotation properly, you can actually have unlimited sustain, depending on whether you take the more difficult route or the easier route. Both will present very good results. So, I'm going to go into the stats first of all. Potion popped. We are sitting on 42.4k max Magicka with a slight change that can go a bit higher to about 44. We are on 994 mag recovery, which is more than enough. 53.6% crit chance and 2.5k spell damage. Do not panic. That spell damage changes a lot. If you use the optimized setup or even not the optimized setup, you can go way over 4k. Fully optimized with buffs in a trial, you can go way over 5.5k spell damage. I'll explain that during the video anyway. So, we're on 64 points into max magic as well. Using double Bloody Mara food. That is max magic and max health bonus, by the way. It's really, really high, but it does remove one level of vampire. If you want to get that level back, use any vampire ability 12 times, and it will put it back to the stage it was previous on. However, if you don't have enough money for that, or you don't have the materials, or don't even have the recipe, you can use flat max mag max health food, the blue stuff. You'll be absolutely fine. Shadow Munderstone, and of course stage 4 vampire. Remember, of course, when you activate this, this will actually go down a level. Now, I'm going to go into the skills in detail. I'm going to explain where they all come from, what they start off as, what they morph to, and I'll explain their application as well. So if you're already familiar with this, then fair enough. If not, I would stick by it because I will not be answering questions that have already been answered in the video. So I would stick with it of value, and plus we have a new skill, which is very beneficial for the build. So this will make a lot more sense if you understand where I'm going with it. Anyway, first of all, we have Burning Embers, which is in our Ardent Flame skill line. It's the second ability you unlock. Starts off as Searing Strike, morph it to Burning Embers. And this is a single target damage over time effect. This lasts 10 seconds, and you can heal based on 75% of the damage already inflicted by the entire skill. So, if you activate it straight away and then hit it again, you'll get 75% of the damage already done. If you activate it and let it run out, you'll get 75% of the total damage done. Or if you reapply it, you can actually claim that heal whenever. So, if you basically have it running like this, just once, but you're in trouble and you need a heal, hit it again, and you'll heal off of it. It's absolutely insane. Very, very powerful indeed. That needs to be on a target at all times. Next up is Engulfing Flames. That is in the Ardent Flame skill line as well. Third ability you unlock, in fact. Starts off as Fiery Breath. Morph it to Engulfing Flames. Now this will actually put a, ignore that circle, we'll get to that in a bit, Flame Breath on the target. It's damage over time. It does do an initial hit as well. It lasts for 10 seconds, so don't spam it. But while this is on the target, and this is very important, you have to keep this up all the time. While this is on the target, affected enemies will take 10% more damage from all fire attacks. So, monster sets, armor sets, anything that fires off fire type damage will be affected, and all skills that do fire damage as well, including glyphs and such as well, from not just you, but from everybody else. You actually debuff the target to buff your group. This is very, very powerful. You must keep this up. Next up is Harness Magicka. Now this is in the light armor skill line. This is your damage shield. Basically, it starts off as annulment, morph it to Harness Magicka. This, very simple, coats your health and protects you from damage. Now, of course, this is based off of your max health in terms of its potential maximum. So the higher this is, obviously the better, the less damage you can take, because it balances off of your resistances as well. Your resistances are considered when you take damage on the shield first, but this will only go to a maximum of 40% of your maximum health. So the higher the health, obviously, the more potent your shield can be, but only up to 40% of your total amount. We do have 19k health, so we've got a pretty hefty shield. It's quite nice. This also, if you get hit by Magicka projectiles, it will absorb the damage, as well as you obviously protecting yourself. But as long as the shield is still active, it can absorb up to 3 hits, and you'll actually get magic back for doing so. Very, very handy skill. Use it when you're in trouble. However, if If you're extremely experienced and if you're in a very, very optimized group and you are more than comfortable with your own survival and you can utilize reapplying Burning Embers if you're in trouble, you can drop the shield. I would not recommend people do this, but you can drop the shield for Inner Light and put that on your front bar instead. It will give you a crit chance bonus of 10% in the form of Major Prophecy, and it will also give you an extra 5% increased max Magicka. So if you are experienced, you can use this, but I wouldn't recommend taking the shield off. We also have another swap out for the back bar, but we'll get to that in a bit. Next up, don't laugh, Unrelenting Grip. This is a single target hit, it gives you a speed boost, and it pulls the targets to your feet. And if you fail to pull the target because it is CC'd or it is a boss, you don't move, the boss doesn't move, you get all your magic back. That is extremely important for this setup, and I will go into that when we get to the rotation, but this is actually very, very important to our build. This can pull stuff to us, so it's in our face where we want it, or it can make us do stuff that is coming up next for the next ability. So this is actually in the Ardent Flame skill line, by the way, just in case. This starts off as Fiery Grip, morph it to Unrelenting Grip. The other morph gives you increased light attack damage for 2 light attacks every time you fire it, but it pulls you to the enemy, not them to you. It's very different. And there's no magic return. Next up is Molten Whip. Now this is different to the previous setup. Molten Whip has been changed in the Elsweyr patch. Lava Whip is how it starts, Molten Whip is what you want to change it to. This does single target flame damage to the enemy that you hit, and if you strike an enemy while it is immobile or stunned, you will knock it off balance. That's very important, obviously, but while slotted, whenever you activate a different, not this one, a different Ardent Flame ability, you gain a stack of Seething Fury, which increases the damage of your next Molten Whip by 33%, and your weapon damage and spell damage by 125 for 5 seconds, and this can stack up to 3 times. So, look at my buff timers at the bottom. You can see I've just got food on there. I'm going to apply an Ardent Flame ability. And you can see the little eyes there and the countdown with a 1 in it. Apply it again, you got 2 in there. Apply it again, you got a 3 in there. And as you can see, my spell damage has gone through the roof. Now, while that's active, or every time you reapply it, it'll only stack up to 3 times, but you can keep doing it, and it will just reapply it over and over and over and over. If you stack up to 3, you'll do this, which is a wicked backflip. And then it will disappear. Spell damage gone. Reapply it again, and you can use another one. 33% increase to the damage, but during these phases, your spell damage is up. Incredibly high. But how is that important since we don't spam this and we don't spam this? Very simple. This cannot pull a boss, and it gives you magic back because you can't pull it, and it does single target damage, and it is Ardent Flame. So you apply it, it does single target damage and adds a stack. Apply it again, whip. Chain, 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 whip. Chain, 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 whip. Every single time, guaranteed. Spell damage uptime, whip whenever you want with the third one, and you have infinite sustain, because if you keep up that in your rotation, this doesn't cost you a thing. And if you are in mechanics where there's lots of adds, this pulls them to you, which is where you want them anyway. Very, very, very efficient. Really powerful update to this particular skill. Really enjoying it, but that is how you utilize those two together really, really well while keeping up the rest of these. Now, when I get to the rotation, it's not going to be just that. There are going to be ways that you can utilize these as well inside that to take advantage of as many flip whips as possible, but I will get to that in a bit. Next up is Ice Comet. Go to the Mages Guild skill line for this. You do need Mages Guild 10, unfortunately, so you will need to get that to unlock this. This is here just for passives. We actually don't ever use the skill. It's only there for passives, which I'll get to later, but if you don't have Mages Guild, don't worry. You can, of course, put Magma Shell on your front bar, which is from the Earth and Heart skill line, and it starts off as Magma Armor. Put it as Magma Shell. This will basically protect you for 12 seconds, and you only take 3% of your maximum health for every single hit that you take. So if something's going to hit you for 27k, it won't. It'll only hit you for 3% of your max health. So this is your oh shit button, plus it gives damage shield to you and nearby friends as well. This is your oh shit button if you don't have Ice Comet for the time being. but I would highly recommend getting Ice Comet because it does give you increased stats. We'll get to those in the passives. Now, Molten Whip is on both bars, because, look very carefully, it says while slotted whenever you activate a different Ardent Flame ability. So if we fired off our Banner or our Flames of Oblivion, which I am getting to, if this wasn't on the bar, we wouldn't get the stacks, we'd lose the spell damage, it wouldn't carry over. We have to double bar it. So, put this on this bar for your spammable, and this bar for stats. Do not touch it on this bar, just leave it there. Next up is Blockade of Fire. This is in the Destruction Staff skill line. This is a second ability you unlock called Elemental Blockade. Starts off as Wall of Elements, but because we're using a Flame Staff, it's called Blockade of Fire. The name changes depending on what Destro Staff you're using. Also, each Destro Staff has its own individual effects. This one specifically is Fire. So while on the ground, not only does it do damage every second to targets caught in here, all targets in fact, it is area of effect, you will also do additional 20% more damage if they are burning. Now, burning is a status effect that can apply from flame damage. You have a chance to apply flame burning status effects to the targets. Now, this, of course, does do damage as well. Burning status effects are an individual single target damage over time effect which can occur from this. So this is very, very powerful indeed. You must keep it down on the ground all the time. Next up is Rearming Trap, and also a flex slot. This is where I was talking about this being able to be swapped. We're now on Rearming Trap. This is in the Fighters Guild skill line. This is a very important skill, but it depends on your group as to whether you need it or not. Basically, go into Fighters Guild, it's Trap Beast to start with, morph it to Rearming Trap. This will put a trap on the ground. Anyone can be caught in that, bosses or ads. Ads will be immobilized, bosses will not. It will do very low for us, since we're not spec'd that way, physical damage over time. But while it's active, it will give us minor force, meaning any critical damage that we do will be increased by 10%. But once it's active and then run out after 6 seconds, it will rearm itself and reapply, so then you get 12 seconds uptime instead of actually 6. This is a very important skill. You do want to have this in your rotation 100% of the time, so you can always benefit from that 10% increased crit damage. But if, again, you are very experienced and you are in a group where your group are perhaps utilizing Twilight Remedy, and you have enough synergies to actively keep up minor force all of the time, what you can do is you can change this out. You can put your shield on your back bar, and that is when you can safely put Inner Light on your front bar, because you still have a damage shield to protect yourself. That, however, again, like I said at the very beginning, is if you are experienced enough and if your group can cater for that type of play. If not, keep your damage shield on, it's probably much, much safer. Next up is Flames of Oblivion. Now, this got changed slightly. This is in the Ardent Flame skill line as well. It's a 5th ability you unlock. Starts off as Inferno, morph it to Flames of Oblivion. Now, when you activate this, puts a fireball around your body. It doesn't hit anything unless you are in a fight, unless you are aggroed. Then it will fire. As you can see, another fireball just flew out at me. Every 5 seconds, while it's active, that will fire a fireball at the target in the form of direct damage. And it can really, really hurt. However, this was altered, because now instead of firing 1 fireball, this fires 2. So you can actually hit 2 targets at once. Also, while slotted, this will actually increase your critical chance on the bar that it's actually present on for your weapon and your spell crit by 10%. It also scales off of your highest offensive stat, which means if you have very high stamina, this will scale off of stamina. If you have very high magicka, this will scale off of magicka. So you can use it as a stam DK or a mag DK. It's entirely up to you. Now, next up is Eruption. This is in the Earth and Heart skill line. 5th ability you unlock. You do need to get some of these abilities to start with to level up this skill line, but it starts off as Ash Cloud. Morph it to Eruption. If you take the wrong morph, the other one's actually a heal, so you got to get this one. Very simple. Big AoE on the ground. Lasts a very long period of time. They did buff this as well, so the damage is actually higher than it was before. This lasts 18 seconds. Very, very high duration. Does damage every 1 second. It does an initial hit as well, and you want to keep this down and this down all the time. But because they're fire damage, make sure the breath is active on all targets caught in here. Very, very important. That will increase the damage by 10%. So, finally, we've got our ultimate, which is also in the Ardent Flame skill line. We're using pretty much the whole skill line here. Everything, we are using actually everything except for, nope, we're using them all. Every single one. Fabulous. So, this is Standard of Might. Starts off as Dragonknight Standard. Morph it to Standard of Might. This will do, I don't know if I've got enough ultimate, I might have. Yes, there we go. There's the banner. Anything caught inside of here will take flame damage over time every 1 second. This also got buffed and fixed because there were some bugs with it in the previous patches. But this does almost 4k damage a second, which goes much, much higher once you use your buffs and put your flame breath on and everything like that. It also applies major to fire, reducing the target's health, regen and recovery, and healing received. And also, while you are standing inside the area, you take 15% less damage and deal 15% more damage. Also, there's a synergy attached to this as well, so if your friends are nearby and they take the synergy, they chain everybody to the post and do loads of flame damage. This is absolutely incredible. But you want to keep this ultimate up, not this one. This is, you can use it in an emergency if you're nearly out of resources, which will come up in the passives, or if the enemy's nearly dead. But you want to use this all the time if not. That's for 18 seconds. It's incredibly powerful. It's expensive, but you get a lot from it. Now, passives. And this will start making a bit more sense. So you want to get every one of these. We're using every single skill in the Ardent Flame skill line now. Usually you'd have this as a flex slot, but we're using it to actively DPS. You'd have a whip maybe on one bar, and you wouldn't necessarily use everything, but we are. We're using them all. So, this increases damage of your burn and poison status effects by 50%. If you apply burn and status effect, which we will a lot, because we're using nothing but fire, you can apply a burning status effect. The damage over time itself is increased by 50% because we're a Dragon Knight. Also, if you apply a burning status effect, once every 5 seconds you can gain back 500 Magicka. This is very, very good to our sustain. When you deal direct damage with an Ardent Flame ability, you reduce the enemy's movement speed. Now, this is direct, this is direct, this has a direct hit when you first apply it, and so does this. So basically everything can do that. It's not hugely essential, but I would get it anyway just so ads don't go running off. This increases the damage of your Fiery Breath, which is our Engulfing Flames, Searing Strike, which is our Burning Embers, and our Dragon Knight Standard, which is Standard of Might, by 3%, so they're all boosted, and their duration is increased by 2 seconds, which is absolutely mental. Increases the damage of your Flame Area of Effect abilities by 6%. So, this here is Area of Effect, so is this, and so is this, and so is our banner. All of those get boosted by 6%. Very, very important indeed. Now, I think that's all of those. Yes, it is. Next up is Draconic Power. We're not actually using any abilities in here, so these aren't all essential, but some of them are. This increases the amount of damage you can block. We are going to block. You want to make sure you don't get hit too hard. So get that. This one, while a Draconic Power ability is active, your healing received is increased by 12%. Now, if you're using any of these, for example, and you have to switch out some stuff, maybe a resist buff or whichever, then, of course, you can take advantage of this. But we're not using any, so you don't need this passive as this build is set up at the moment. Also, this increases your health recovery for each one slotted, which we don't need, but it does increase the range of our instant cast melee attacks by 2 meters. This one here, Burning Embers, does actually count as that. So instead of 5 meters, that's got 7 meter range. So we do want to get this passive here. And this increases your spell resistance by 3300. We have massive spell resistance as a Dragon Knight. We do want to take advantage of this. Earth and Heart, these are the ones that really, really count. Now, this increases the duration of your Earth and Heart abilities. So that means obviously our Eruption lasts longer, and so does our Magma Shell if we need to use it. This one here will give you back health, magic, and stamina. 46 of each resource back for every 1 ultimate cost. That's 46 on every resource 250 times for using this ultimate. Don't just drop an ultimate on the ground for no reason. Make sure you've spent some resources. Then when you use an ultimate, you'll get it back. Very, very important. This one is a lot cheaper, obviously, so you'll get less back, which is why we don't use this ultimate actively. We use this one instead, plus the damage bonus from actually using it. But if you are very low on resources, you're in trouble, the boss is nearly dead, you don't have enough for the backbar ultimate, you can fire off your Ice Comet instead. Or your Magma Shell if you're in trouble. Mountain's Blessing is insane. When you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you and your group get minor brutality for 20 seconds, increasing their weapon damage by 10%. So, your group now get buffed by you using this once every 20 seconds. And we use it once every second rotation anyway, so we can have 100% uptime on minor brutality for the group. So your stamina people will be really happy that you just buffed them. Also, if you're in combat, when you use any Earth and Heart abilities, within a cooldown of 6 seconds, every time you do, you'll get 3 ultimate. So once every 6 seconds, if you do use this, you'll get ultimate back. But we use it once every second rotation, so we're just fine. We do actually benefit from that. And finally, when you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you restore 990 stamina. Of course, we'll block, we'll dodge roll, we might have to sprint a little bit. And for using this, you get stamina back. Very nice indeed. Essential passives in the Earth and Heart. You've got to get that skill line up quickly. Destruction stuff, of course, you want all of these. This one will increase the damage of our Heavy attacks, if we have to deal heavy attack damage because we're using a flame staff, there's the bonus for that. This will increase your penetration for your destruction staff abilities themselves. Now, technically, we're only using one, which is Wall of Elements, but light attacks and heavy attacks do count. So if there are buff uptime and downtimes, this will obviously help us do a little bit more damage during those phases. Increases your chance to apply burning, concussion, and chilled status effects. We do want burning to happen. This will give us a 100% increased chance from the base to apply those, and we will be doing them a lot, trust me. Increases the damage done with your single target abilities by 8%. So, this here, our whip, our chain, our light attacks, and our heavy attacks are all increased by that passive. Also, so is this, because the initial hit is single target. Very important to get that. Every different element staff-wise has different passive. That is our main one. Our direct damage is huge. Also, when you kill an enemy with a destruction staff ability, you restore 3600 Magicka. So if you kill something with your Wall of Elements, your light attack, or your heavy attack, you'll actually get juice back. Light armor, of course, we're using 5 pieces of light armor. We get this to reduce the effectiveness of snares and reduce the cost of sprinting. This will give us increased recovery and reduction to cost. This will give us increased spell resistance, which is already huge, so get that. And these two rely on you having 5 pieces on. This will increase your crit spell rating by 10%. 2191 is 10%. And also, this will increase our spell penetration by 4884. Now, when you're trying to debuff a boss, all targets in PvE have 18200 physical and spell resistance. Any penetration bonuses that you have, remove that amount of resistances for the target for you, unless it's a group buff or debuff, in which case it's for everybody. This is for us flat out. We get this bonus just for having 5 pieces. It's very, very strong. We're using 1 piece of medium armor, so we only need 2 passives here. The rest are a bit useless for us. You want Windwalker, which will increase your stam recovery, because we will block, we will dodge roll, we will need to break free, so get the stamina back nice and quick, and reduces the cost of stamina abilities. Of course, we're using Beast Trap. That will help. And athletics as well. Increases the movement speed while you sprint, which isn't that essential, but the dodge roll reduction to cost is. We are going to dodge roll, get the cost down, even if it's a minimal amount. We're using 1 piece of heavy armor as well. We don't need these 2 because they require 5 pieces, so ignore those. But you do want Juggernaut to increase your max health by 2% for the 1 piece. You do want this to get resources back if you take damage, and you will do. And you do want this for the small resistance bonus. So if you've got enough points, these 3 are important. The other 2 are not. We are a stage 4 vampire, of course. You want supernatural recovery to give yourself an increased magicka and stam recovery, which obviously is to help us block, dodge, and break free, and of course fire out our damage. And then you want undeaf. Undeaf is insane. If you are under 50% health, most people would start panicking because you're nearly dead. But this passive gives you a little bit of forgiveness, because the lower your health is, the less damage you take. Up to a maximum of 33% reduction to damage the lower your health goes. This is incredibly strong. Mage's Guild, of course, we have Ice Comment on front bar. We needed Mage's Guild 10 for a reason. Why was that? This is the reason. Magicka Controller. Increases your maximum magic and recovery by 2% for each skill of this line slotted. So, Ice Comet gives you 2% recovery and 2% max magic. And, like I said before, if you are in a very optimized situation and you can get away with putting a shield on the back and inner light on the front, if you have Twilight Remedy in your group and you've got constant minor force, then of course you can benefit from a further 2% from having inner light on your bar. So these 2 here do stack up quite nicely if you can do that. Better than that, if you're just very, very comfortable and your healer's really good, you can obviously swap that out, but I wouldn't necessarily encourage people to not use a shield. Undaunted is very, very important. You need Undaunted 9 to max these 2 passives out. First of all, if you take a synergy, you get 4% resources back. Regardless of what the synergy's bonus is, you get this flat out. Take the synergies, you're going to need them. Also, increases your max health, stamina, and magicka by 2% for each type of armor worn. We're wearing 3 different types of armor. 1 heavy piece, 1 medium piece, and 5 light pieces. 3 different types gives us 6% across the board, which is why our health and magicka is so high. We are a Khajiit. I did multiple different tests over a very long period of time. The Dark Elf was great. The High Elf was awesome. The Khajiit did outperform on this build because of his passives. Now, you do get increased health recovery and stam recovery and mag recovery, which is quite nice. It's not massive, but it helps. But you do also get another couple of nice bonuses, which is max health, max magicka, and max stam, all at 825 increase. So you're a bit tankier, you got a little bit of resources, more than other people. That's handy. This is the one that really stood out. increases your critical damage and your critical healing by 10%. Stacked on top of the Shadow Munderstone and our champion points and Beast Trap, altogether counted for a lot. No, we don't crit 100% of the time, but when we do, it really, really counts. So that is why I chose the cat. Not to mention, of course, it did outperform in testing. Finally, the most important passive in my opinion. Now, all you need to do is get this to 50. There's a video in the description showing you how to do that in 15 minutes. Very cheap materials, very quick to do. Then you can dump all your points and just put 3 into medicinal use. Now, this will increase your potions uptime by 30%, regardless of what bonuses they give. Now, this is very important for us because we are actually using Essence of Spell Power. This will give us Major Sorcery, increasing our spell damage by 20%. Major Prophecy is on both bars anyway, but we've got it in the potion, so why not? And it gives us Major Intellect as well, plus it gives us magic back for using the pot. I see a lot of people using potions when they're really low and that's it. No, use your potions all the time. When you do activate them, of course, you get the burst of magic back, but the whole time they're active, this 47.6 seconds, you get constant Major Sorcery all the time, constant Major Intellect all the time. You've got to keep it up. If these drop off, obviously your damage will go down and so will your sustain. And medicinal use is where this really counts because the 47.6 seconds beats the 45-second cooldown. So we can have these up 100% of the time. If you don't have the passive, they'll only last about 36 seconds and you'll have gaps in your actual sustain and damage output. So they're very, very important. Okay, now we're going to get into the gear, and there are some options here. If you are looking for something that's very quick to put together, don't worry, we've got you covered. As long as your RNG is on your favor as far as the weapons are concerned. But if you want to go that extra mile, I've also got that covered as well. So we're going to go over the non-trial setup first of all. So what we've got is the Burning Spellweave Inferno Staff, which comes from City of Ash. I know it is rare, but it's just one of those things. It's very easy to get in there. It's very easy to complete. It's just luck as to whether you get it or not. But you want a weapon and spell damage increased glyph on this bar. You only have this weapon on the front bar. Have it in precise on purpose. This will give you max magic, spell damage, spell crit, and when you deal damage with a flame ability, you have a 15% chance to apply a burning status effect. When you do this, your spell damage will be increased by 525 for 8 seconds. Now note here, you've got 525 there, but you've also got Molten Whip, which can also go up by 125 3 times on top of that. So you've got 525 from Burning Spellweave, you've got 375 from this, which is absolutely mental. Then, on top of that, where's my gear gone? We use the Maelstrom weapon on the back bar with a flame damage enchant with Infuse, and this set actually boosts our light and heavy attacks. So while doing your light or heavy attacks or skills to apply this glyph and apply burning status effects, this will actually improve those attacks. So it's very, very important to get this if you can. If you can't get the Maelstrom weapon, do not panic. You can use a willpower weapon on the back bar just to increase your max magic while you're on the back bar and close the gap a little bit. It's not the end of the world. It is going to make a difference damage-wise, but you can still suffice with other weapons instead for the time being. Just note, obviously, this is how you can optimize it and make it that much stronger. Now, Burning Spellweave is on the front bar weapon only, and on the jewelry, if you can get the jewelry. If not, you can put it on the body pieces. It's absolutely fine wherever you want to put it, as long as it's 3 pieces on your character and 1 piece on the staff. Now, if that sounds confusing, that's not 4 pieces. Technically, it's 4 items of gear, but staves are worth 2 pieces. They count as 2 because it's a 2-handed item. Now, the next set is, of course, Groftar. This is very, very powerful. It gives you a max magic bonus straight away, and it also gives you a 10% chance to apply flame in area of effect for 5 seconds, then a 5-second downtime, and then it can be reapplied again within 8 meters. Now, you've seen it already when I was hitting stuff. Should be able to get it to fire pretty much straight away. There it is. There's the circle. Everything around you will take damage over time every second for 5 seconds. And this here, the Flame Breath, the 10% increase, does buff it. It's very, very strong indeed. You want the helmet and shoulder of that. You want 1 heavy and 1 medium. But if you want to go that extra mile for single target damage over time, you want Zaan. Zaan is very, very powerful. It's not too much different from this. You can actually get very similar results, single target, especially since it's got a max magic bonus. But this does give you an extra crit bonus, and it does do a serious amount of damage when it fires. This will do damage every 1 second for 5 seconds, but each tick will get progressively stronger by 50%. So it's very, very powerful, and this does also benefit from your engulfing flames. Now, it's got a 13-second downtime rather than 5, but it does hit incredibly hard. And all you have to do for this is light attack or heavy attack in your rotation to get it to fire. and there's the breath. If you get within 8 meters or more than 8 meters away, it will break, however. So you've got to make sure that you stay close. So the choice is yours as far as monster sets are concerned. Grofdar is absolutely solid, but if you want to go that tiny bit extra, Xan is the way to go with it. Now, finally, the last set is Destruction Mastery. This comes from Dragonstar Arena. You can get it on normal, you can get it on vet, and you can even buy it off the market. So you can go to Vaults of Madness for Grofdar, you can go to City of Ash 1 for Burning Spellweave, and you can go to normal Dragonstar Arena for this. It's very, very easy to get hold of. And VMA is solo, so you don't need any trials at all for this entire setup. But Destruction Mastery is a max magic, spell crit, spell damage set, just the same as Burning Spellweave, so we've got very similar stats there. But instead of giving you a spell damage increase, this gives you 2,400 max Magicka if you have a Destro Staff equipped, and we do. All flat stat bonuses were increased by 20% from 300 CPs onwards. If you have 300 CPs applied, that applies to your sets on 5-piece bonuses, and it also applies to your food. So this is really, really powerful. It gives you nice flat stats, and you hit incredibly hard. But trait-wise, you want to make sure you get infused on the big pieces, head, chest, and legs, and divines on the small, which is the feet, the hands, the belt, and the shoulder. The reason we've got infused on the larger pieces is, first of all, for the higher flat resource, but secondly also, if you crit with all divines, sure, you can have 19% increase to your crit damage rather than 16, but it's based off of your flat resources. I tested it multiple different times. Obviously, if you've got all divines, you're only relying on when you crit. But if you have some infused and increase your flat resources, your flat damage is higher. So yes, you'll still hit very, very high when you do crit, but you'll hit higher than you would before if you don't crit. It balanced out very, very well. So infused on the large, divines on the small. In terms of actual output, top end, if we don't include Major Slayer, Minor Courage, and Major Vulnerability, on this build, which I'm now going to show you with the alternate set, I was hitting 80k maximum whips on all divines. But I hit 83k max whips with 3 infused and the rest divines, because it balanced out your flat higher, so when you did crit, it hit that little bit harder. So, what you can do, we've already gone over, you can have Grofdar or Xan. What you can do, if you are more experienced, or if you're running normal trials, or even vet trials, normal trials is very easy to get hold of because you don't need perfected versions, but perfected versions are nice. You can go with Sororia. Sororia, of course, is very challenging to use for most. It will increase your damage somewhat, by about 3k DPS overall. So it's not massive, but it does help. And this, when you fire direct damage, or do damage, this will put a circle down on the ground, and it will tick up. You can see the little buff timer there, the little circle is just constantly ticking as long as I stand in it. And it'll reapply as long as I do damage. If I don't stay in it and I don't apply damage, it will fall off. So most people cannot actively keep these ticks up. Every single tick that is up there, all the way to 20, will give you 30 spell damage. 30 and 30 and 30 and 30, all the way up to 20 stacks. If you let it run out, they go all the way back to the beginning, and it's not worth you using the set. So, if you are not capable inside mechanics of keeping that proc up, don't bother using it. Or practice, your choice. Destruction Mastery, absolutely fine. But if you want to go the extra mile and you think you can keep on top of this, this will obviously perform a little bit better. Because this will give you spell damage, minor Slayer, increasing all of your damage by 5%, 2 max mag bonuses if you have perfected versions, but 1 max mag if you don't, which is absolutely fine. And also, like I said, direct damage on single target abilities creates a ring of fire beneath you for 10 seconds, and each stack, which stacks up, will give you 30 spell damage each. So, this armor can be in any order you like, but your front bar weapon must be Burning Spellweave. Just note, by the way, the reason this weapon is on the front bar is because it does have an 8-second uptime and a 12-second downtime. There's a 4-second gap between the two, in fact. There's a 12-second cooldown, sorry. So 8 seconds up, 4 seconds down. The timer starts from as soon as it activates. So the reason it's on the front is so we can fire it straight away. Let's see if we can see it. There should be a little brown symbol with a flame in it. Come on, don't let me down. There you go. That one there. There's counting down from 5, 4, 3. You can see the flame. Now, I want that to fire on the front bar. I don't want it to fire on the back bar. I'm doing my rotations, and when I get to the front, it runs out. I want to take advantage of it on the front. Yes, of course, there will be downtimes, but I want it to be on the front on purpose, so then my whips are more powerful. Now, hopefully that wasn't too confusing. we'll just recap. Burn and Spell Weave, 5 pieces. Staff on the front, Jewelry, or 3 pieces on the body. Sororia on the 5 pieces, or Destruction Mastery if you want to go the no trials route. Zahn or Groftar. Any combination of any of those is absolutely fine. And back bar weapon is, of course, Maelstrom Inferno, unless you don't have it, in which case, for now, Willpower will be fine. So, now I'm going to go over the champion points, then I'm going to explain the rotation. Champion points. We are looking at 72 points into Ironclad to give us a 23% reduction to direct damage. 64 and 64 into Hardy and Elemental, meaning we actually have a 13% reduction to all damage types, with those two being balanced. And a 19% reduction with 51 points into Thick Skin to damage over time. Bear in mind, of course, we do have the Unchained passive. So if you break free, your next stamina ability is 80% cheaper. So that's when you want to get in a really, really sneaky beast trap for a much, much cheaper cost. Quick recovery, which will give us an increased heal and receive bonus from our heals or other people's. And of course, you've got the Field Physician passive. So when you resurrect someone, you take less damage. Put on a damage shield. Make sure you've got your Burning Embers running on something so that it ticks off and gives you a heal and get people up. 44 points into Warlord. You will be breaking free. You want to get the cost down. 75 points into Tenacity. I haven't mentioned anything about heavy attacks in this rotation because we don't actually need it. But if you do run low and you find that you're over spamming, of course, heavy attacks will return resources and this will help a lot. 75 points into Arcanist to give us a 14% recovery bonus to our max Magicka, and also 76 points into Tumble. And I do this on every single build. You actually need 72 points into here, but if you have 75 in the tree, you get the Treasure Hunter passive. And if you're farming for that Burn and Spell Weave staff, you might need this. So the other 4 points are going to go nowhere. I put them into here instead. 51 points into crit damage. 11 points into spell erosion. This is all we need. In fact, we only need 10, but I've got 1 point spare and there's nothing I can do with it. If you have Minor Breach, which is 1320, you have Major Breach, which is 5280, you have Alkosh, which is 3010, you have an Infused Turug's Pack Crusher, which is 2740, and then you've got your own passive as well, which is 4884. Your penetration is extremely high alongside this 1097. You can hit cap very, very easily, but just obviously consider that buffs will have uptimes and downtimes, so there will be gaps. But if you are really anal about it and you want to make sure that you've got it on the nose to the closest possible point based on the points we've got available, then this is where you want to put them. 64 points into Elemental Expert as well, increasing all of our damage that we do with pretty much everything we're doing by 13%, except for our Beast Trap, because we're doing fire damage with everything except for that. 3 points into Staff Expert, because that's all the points I've got left to put in there, so give us a 2% increase to our lights and heavies, and 66 into Master at Arms, increasing all of our direct damage. That includes your lights, your heavies, your chain, your whips, and your Flames of Oblivion. And of course your Burning Embers when you initially hit, and your breath as well. They all count. Oh, and even Eruption. Pretty much everything, the first hit at least. 75 points into Thaumaturge. Yes, we are taking advantage of this. We're doing quite a bit of damage over time, so we do want to boost it. But at the same time, we've opened up ourselves to the Exploiter passive, so when things are off balance, we can take advantage of that 10% increased damage, and that will really, really count. Now, rotation. This can be either very, very simple, or it can be swap and change, depending on how experienced you are. First of all, you want to make sure you've got your Flames of Oblivion up. You want to make sure you got your Beast Trap down. And this is where you start. You start with Eruption. Light Attack, Wall of Elements, Swap Bar. Very simple start. Now, you want to make sure that you put your Light Attack between every ability, by the way. Light Attack, Burning Embers. Now, we're going to go over the simple one first. Light Attack, Chains. Light Attack, Chains. Light Attack, Chains. Light Attack, Whip. Light Attack, Breath, Swap. Pretty straightforward. Now, you can do that every single rotation if you want. But you need to line up these 3 hits. When you use one of those, or you use one of those, or you use one of those. So how do we utilize that? What you need to do is when you've got your rotation in full swing, you want to make sure you hit with... We'll go to the back bar first. Make sure everything's running. Breath, swap after your whip. Flames of Oblivion, Light Attack, Beast Trap, Light Attack, Wall. Light Attack, Embers. Light Attack, Whip. We consumed it. Light 3 chains. Consume the whip. Now, this can get a little complicated, but what you have to remember very clearly is that every single Ardent Flame ability that we cast on either bar will add 1 tick. So look at my buff timers. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. You've got to pay attention to this. Now, every single second rotation, you have to apply Eruption. second rotation. So back bar rotation is very simple. Oblivion, Beast Trap, Wall, Swap. The light attack between everything. Every second rotation is Eruption, Oblivion, Beast Trap, Wall, Swap. The reason we do that is because we want to take full advantage of this ability without overcasting it. But we also have to put Flames of Oblivion on every back bar rotation so we can take 1 tick of that special whip. Very, very simple. The Flame bar swap is 1 tick. Flames of Oblivion is 2 ticks. By the time we swap, we fire Burning Embers, which is 3 ticks, and then we can take advantage of the whip instantly. So, the first rotation can be a little tricky, because you do have to make sure you start getting those 3 ticks in, and you do want your Burning Breath, or Engulfing Flames, in fact, to be on quickly. So your first rotation will be Embers, Breath, Chain, Whip, then 3 chains. Then Whip, then Breath. After every second whip, you always do Breath Swap. That's your first one. That's a little tricky. It's kind of Nightblade-ish. I like what they've done with the skill. They've made it synergize with other stuff. Very clever. But as long as that makes sense, your first rotation, there's 1 tick. Burning Embers, there's 2. Get your Flame Breath on, that's 3. Take the whip. Chain 3 times. Whip. Breath, swap. Eruption if you need to. Oblivion, Trap, Wall, Embers, Whip. Chain. Now this stays the same all the time. Breath, Oblivion, Beast Trap, Wall, Embers, Whip. 3 chains. 1, 2, 3. Whip, Breath, Oblivion, Beast Trap, Wall, Embers, Whip again. See this? It's going round and round and round and round. You've got 2 whips every rotation as long as you keep that up, because you're firing 3 Ardent Flame abilities before the first whip, and then you're spamming 3 chains, which are Ardent Flame abilities before the second. Now, how does this change? If you are sustaining incredibly well, and you're over 50% Magicka, you don't have to do the chains, because the whip on its own is actually more damage than the chain. Especially if you crit it, which it's not crit. There you go, that's 9k, and the whip is like 14. But the chain is free, the whip is not. So you're going to burn your resources really, really quickly. So what you want to do is you want to use the chain 3 times and the whip every single time that you can. But if your Magicka is particularly high, you're taking synergies, you've got Ellie Drain, you've got all the shiny stuff, your potion just popped, you just dropped an ultimate. Those phases, you can change your rotation. And the only thing you have to change is that instead of doing 3 chains and a whip, just do 4 whips. You will get burst damage during those periods, and you can take advantage of them. I will show it on the target dummy in a moment. I do a full raid dummy pass so you can actually see what it does, and you'll see me changing my rotation within it. But if you are having trouble with it, and you just want to keep it simple, then of course you can. Make sure the Flame Breath is on at all time, make sure your Beast Trap is down, and once your first rotation is out of the way, you can just go nuts. So put this down, make sure this is all running, and as soon as you've got your first whip out, that's when you can start doing the 3 chain whip breath swap. Oblivion, that's 2. Swap Wall. Embers, that's 3. Whip. Chain, 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 whip, breath, swap. That if you need it. Oblivion, Beast Trap, Wall, Embers, whip, 3 chains, whip again. Very simple, but of course inside mechanics your sustain will be much higher. And if that's the case, you can change, again, like I said already, the 3 chains can be changed to just 3 whips and then a final whip, so 4. Always remember to light, breath, swap. It keeps the bonus up on the target, and it also allows you to hit your first tick while you swap bars. Very, very important. That may have sounded probably more complicated than it needed to be, but I will write it in the written guide, of course, and hopefully that will make a bit more sense. Just keep up that rotation statically and it will never fail. Now, ultimates, of course, use them when you are halfway through your rotation. So once you've already laid down loads of dots and such, unless, of course, you've already got resources missing, that's when you want to fire it. Because if you fire at full bars, you're going to run out of juice really quickly because you just filled something that isn't needed to be filled. So here is a demonstration of the optimized version of the setup on the raid dummy. This dude over here, as you can see, I've got loads of buffs now. My food ran out, perfect. Got loads of buffs now. And if you look at this in your options, not log out, in your options, and put on permanent effects, you can see that he is buffed to hell. Major breach, minor breach. He's got the engulfing flames already. Alkosh, minor vulnerability, and an infused Turok's Pack Crusher. Anyway, here we go. So hopefully that helped, hopefully that wasn't too boring, hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular build. It is not as tricky as it looks, it's quite easy to get the gear for, you don't have to have any trial gear, but if you do want to optimize, like I said already, you can do. But you can use it for all content, and yes, if you have the lesser setup, if you like, the non-trials gear setup, you can still perform incredibly well. That 80k pass there can actually go anywhere between 82 and 85, if you're lucky, lagged a little bit in there. But without the trial gear, just the basic setup, you can actually hit for somewhere between 75 and 77 on that dummy alone. And that's missing some buffs anyway. So, once again, thank you very, very much, everyone, for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. And if you are not subscribing, please do hit that button, it is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com, where all the written guides are, and there's an All About Mechanics add-on as well. So for those of you on PC that are struggling with dungeons, I actually have an add-on now where all of the bosses are described as you approach them in the dungeon. Anyway, thank you all very, very much for watching. I fully appreciate the support, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.